Okay, things are a little bit different this time. Hey, baby. Just had the stent removed, and I'm feeling a lot better.
And I took a picture of the whatever it is.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll try to put that up on screen at some point. But yeah, good to go. And that chapter of my life is over, of not being able to breathe.
You still have one more month of them checking it out again.
Yeah.
Other than that.
Yeah, got to come back in a month and make sure everything's okay. And then tonight I got to clean this nose out a lot, so.
It's Hawker.
I can breathe again. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I want to tell you a little bit about my experience with my deviated septum surgery. Not just the day of, but the 2 weeks after that. It's a little bit past that point now, and I've had a few days to recover and reflect on how it all went down. And I just want to share my experience with you. This is primarily for people that are considering getting deviated septum surgery. And it's definitely a unique experience that I think is worth it. And I didn't realize I needed it so badly until the last few years. So I'm gonna basically start out with how it went on the day of the surgery and then kind of relate how it went afterwards. I'm not gonna give you a day-by-day, blow-by-blow account of every nuance of what happened, because I don't think people would really get much out of that. It really isn't that type of a vlog experience. This video is more focused on what it was like going through the surgery the day of, and the journey after that for about 2 weeks, where I had a plastic stent in my nose and I couldn't breathe out of my nose basically at all until it was removed exactly 2 weeks later. So I've got a few notes here I'll probably reference from here and there, but yeah, let me tell you a little bit about what happened. So leading up to this experience, I noticed going through COVID in 2021 and beyond, I was having a problem breathing through this nostril. And I thought COVID may have been something that triggered it or something, but it wasn't something I noticed before then. But I just had the hardest time. If I closed my mouth, plug this nostril and breathe, it was just really hard breathing through this nose. And I'm not a mouth breather by default, so I'm always breathing through my nose. But I just noticed that the more I was exerting myself, the harder it was to breathe. I just felt like I was gassing out, basically. I play a lot of disc golf, probably about 2 rounds a week, sometimes 3. And the last year or 2 has been miserable. I was not making it through rounds. I'd play 18 holes of disc golf, and by the end I was wiped out. And it got worse in the summer, where I would breathe heavier. And I just didn't know what was going on. My nose looked fine, you know. I just didn't know what was going on. And so, long story short, I started looking into the kind of problems this could be, and deviated septum turns out to be the thing. So, long story short, I went to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. They examined my nose, and whoa, it's crooked in there. It's like, okay. I'd never noticed. Can't tell. Can't really feel it, but apparently it was crooked. And so even though I could breathe well through this one nostril, if this was ever plugged up, it just made it a lot harder to breathe, no matter how unconstricted this was, just because the airway was already so constricted. So I'd planned for several months to get this surgery, and actually have been having problems sleeping. You know, I'm an insomniac. I've been that way for probably 10 plus years, maybe closer to 20. But a lot of that I've attributed to my lifestyle of working graveyard shifts, evening shifts, morning shifts, repetitively over 30 plus years. And so leading up to this, I was just surprised that this could be a thing, that I would be experiencing this, and sure enough, I have this issue. So it kind of caught up with me at work. It was making it harder for me to work. You know, I'd wake up super early. I'd be tired all day. It'd make for long days, let me just tell you that. And as an insomniac, I can't just take naps. It just doesn't happen that way. And so it was just miserable. So scheduled a date, that kind of fell through, and then I basically was laid off along with 8,000 other people at the job that I was working. And so I was like, you know what, let's just go ahead and get it done now. And you know, the funny thing is, they actually reached out to me before I made that decision, and that kind of prompted me to make that decision. So, I mean, it was more than just, hey, I lost my job, let's go and get it. It was my wife telling me, hey, the company reached back and said, hey, you know, the specialist reached back and had another time. I was like, okay, sure, I'm free now, let's go ahead and do it. I knew I was going to be putting out a lot of job applications, resumes, stuff like that. And so I had a little time. And so we scheduled it, and then I won't belabor it any further. We had the day of the surgery, and I was getting a little nervous. I did a lot of research looking into like Google Gemini's AI tool, you know, getting descriptions and information about how it was going to go down, what I needed to do. But it didn't really prepare me for how it went. So we went to not to the clinic, you know, that was where we initially talked with the doctor who was going to perform the surgery. But months later, when we were going to have the surgery done, we went to another place. I don't know if it's a clinic or not. It's like a mini hospital kind of place where they have surgeries and stuff. I don't really know. But we went there, and I started getting nervous, and it really started to affect me. And I really was unprepared for that sort of feeling, and I kind of was like getting really low on myself. Leading up to it, I had blood tests. Those are all really good. Blood pressure, all really good. So I knew I was in great shape to actually have the surgery. There were no issues, you know, it's not like I was doing recreational drugs or drinking or crazy, you know, diet or, you know, doing any sort of crazy stuff. You know, I'm a normie when it comes to all that stuff. I'm a square peg. So basically, I didn't have anything that would cause me issues in having the surgery. It's kind of funny, I'm actually experiencing a little bit of that feeling right now, this sort of feeling of dread. That's why you're probably hearing my voice tremor a little bit. But it was kind of weird. You know, we get to the lobby, we're waiting for me to have you know, for my name to be called. It's called, and I start having this sort of nervous anticipation creep up. You know, they take me to the back. There's other people that are about to have this surgery or other surgery there. And, you know, the lady's like, okay, here's your nightgown, take everything off, get to, you know, get in the nightgown, and then let us know when you're ready. Took me longer to get all that done. And then I was ready to go, lay down in the little chair. And another lady came and was going to inject a little IV, you know, put a little IV in my veins. And at that point, I started actually sort of like having this really nervous, almost panic reaction. It was kind of crazy. You know, I've been doing subcutaneous injections, you know, recently. I've given sub-Q injections to my mom before. She was brittle diabetic. She required insulin, and I had to take care of her, particularly in the last years of her life. So I wasn't really scared of needles per se, but it's a little different when you're injecting yourself like in the, you know, maybe the fat, belly fat or something like that with a little itty bitty 31 gauge needle that's like 8 millimeters, doesn't really travel that far, and you know, it's usually a quick kind of deal. Not really concerned about that, but the instant she's trying to inject or, you know, insert this rather large needle into my vein, I just started freaking out. It's kind of funny, I'm still kind of doing that right now, just even thinking about it. So I was unprepared for that. Even when I had a hemorrhoidectomy in the late 2018, I didn't have the sort of reaction, but I sure did here. And so I kind of blew out my vein a little bit here, so she had to start another one here, and I started panicking there. She was like, hey, you know, shake your feet, not your hands. And I was trying to do that. And I blew out that vein. It was really kind of crazy. And I was so apologetic. I was like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I'm doing this. And anyways, long story short, third time's the charm. She got it in here. And I still feel bad about that. But anyways, got through that. And, you know, we got through it. They called my wife to, you know, coming back, kind of help, you know, make me feel better. And anyway, so long story short, I got through that. And they wheeled me into the surgery room, and I guess at that point they were kind of like, okay, we got the IV, let's go ahead and put the knockout juice or whatever's in there in that. And I was out. Just wheeling up to it, it's kind of funny, wheeling me, and I'm walking through a lot of people, and I had this sort of, I could tell they had this sort of look of fear or anticipation, at a heavy anticipation at a minimum. And, you could kind of tell that, people were kind of looking at me, not in a worried kind of way, but like, is this guy, is this guy okay? Is he going to make it? And so, wheels me in the back, and then the next thing I know, I'm waking up, and I'm like groggy. I'm in my little wheelchair, and they're wheeling me out to the lobby or whatever, or they wheel me to someplace. I get dressed. The details are a little fuzzy, and then my wife puts me in the car. I walk with her out to the car, wheel me out there, and I get in the car with her, and she drives me home. And yeah, I felt like I went through a ringer, absolutely wiped out, physically drained, like I went, 20 rounds with Mike Tyson, beating me up round after round. It was just, I've never felt so weak and deficient since then. I'm going to take a break and compose myself, and then I'll continue. Okay, I'm going to refer to my notes a little bit more. So yeah, I was super exhausted. I was weak. I could barely utter a voice to speak, and I just could tell that I was really slow in acting and reacting. And one of the things I could tell is I was bleeding a lot. So you might have noticed that I had like a gauze rolled up here against my nose. They call it a mustache. And then they had like another gauze thing that was strapped to my ears that was keeping it in place. Well, that little tampon, for lack of a better word, has these little lines that fill up whenever it fills up with blood, and when it's all completely red, it lets you know you need to swap it out. I didn't swap it out for a while, but basically what they did in the surgery is they broke my nose and then put a plastic stent in there to put it right, to set it straight, to set it. And oh, it's kind of cold here, sorry guys. I was just bleeding a lot. They gave me acetaminophen in one pill and like Zoloft or Zofran or some sort of generic name for it. I'll put the name on screen for what it was if I got nauseous, and I never did. And believe me, aspirin, Tylenol, Bufferin, those kind of things, acetaminophen wasn't gonna make me feel any better. So those were completely unused during this experience. And so I realized too late that it was just filling up, and they only gave me like 5 of those, or 6 total. So I had 5 left to go through. So I had to reconstruct the little thing and put the thing in, and I just needed to pay attention to when it would fill up to put in the next one. And I kept not doing it, but I kept bleeding so much. I used all of them up that night. And in fact, I had to just use the last one, at night when I went to bed. So as you'll notice in my office bedroom setup, the bed is in the center of the room behind me. And I basically laid back against the bed. And for the first several days, actually, the only way I could sleep was leaning back against the headboard and being propped up with pillows. And it was an absolutely miserable experience. When I woke up the first day after being just completely wrecked, and of course this was completely red, completely filled with blood. I had to construct my own mustache and use the same ear tampon thing. Just keep swapping out the mustache over and over. And so one piece of advice I'd give to anyone going through this experience is pay more attention to the bleeding that you're going through. And you may want to buy additional gauzes and pads, or the little tampon thingy. It's called a nasal drip thing. I'll put the thing on screen, whatever it's called, I forget. But you want to buy more of those, and you're going to use them a lot in the first few days. It's going to be more than the first few hours. And in my case, it was like 3 or 4 days. I just kept bleeding. It was slower and slower. But the thing is, you're bleeding back here, but it's trying to come out your nose, but it's also coming out your throat. So that's why I had blood in my mouth after the surgery, is because I'm laying back and I'm bleeding into my mouth during the surgery. And anytime I cough, absolutely pain or sneeze, absolute pain. Any sort of pressure, like lifting up, if you're trying to do a squat type of thing, you're bending down or squatting down, any sort of effort, splitting headache. And that's probably what the acetaminophen is for. But man, it was just so rough. And just day in and day out of dealing with that. You know, eventually it stopped bleeding and I was able to get better. But anytime I kept having phlegm, I'd cough up phlegm and it was just bloody phlegm. And I tried using gauze and even toilet paper to clean the nose, but I couldn't get much. There wasn't much room in there. So I ended up resorting to Q-tips. And I used these Q-tips to just basically clean. I used 300 plus Q-tips, both ends of each, in a 500 pack over the course of, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. And yeah, that was something else. So definitely have Q-tips handy, have more gauze and the more little tampon nasal drip things with you. Get them on the way home, or if you're dropped off at the house, have them go get some and come back, or order Amazon or something overnight or immediately to have it shipped or whatever you got to do. Get more gauze. You're going to need it. So you can imagine how this interacted with my insomnia. I couldn't sleep well. I couldn't sleep deep. I couldn't sleep often. Couldn't sleep for long. It just, no matter what, it was just absolutely miserable, day in and day out, day in and day out, just not being able to get much sleep. So, and I was starting to get to the point where it stopped bleeding, and that's actually where some of the peptides came in. And I'll probably go into more elaboration about the peptides in another video. Let's try to keep this more towards the deviated septum stuff. But on the second day after the surgery, I decided I would go ahead and start doing the injecting myself with the peptides. Two of them were called BPC-157 and TB-500, which is actually TB4, but that's not really that important. But basically, they're healing/regenerative peptides that may or may not have helped. But I noticed the day after I injected those, that's when the bleeding stopped. And I'm not saying that they stopped the bleeding, but it was kind of like a night and day experience. Me injecting those in the morning, and by the evening, I stopped bleeding and I felt better. And that night, I was able to actually more lay down on either side. And I was also taking another pair of peptides called CJC-1295 and Ipamorelin. And one of the side effects of it is, there's a few side effects, but essentially it's a secretagogue that makes you produce more growth hormone naturally. Both of these blends of peptides, they're designed to make your body operate better or faster, or makes your hormone, either your organs that produce hormones, produce more of them so that you heal faster, or produce more growth hormone to make you recover better. And so that's why I took those. So I started taking the peptides, and one of the side effects of the growth hormone secretagogues is you get better sleep. I was completely skeptical about that, but sure enough, on the 4th night, I had the deepest sleep I had in years. And then the next night, and the next night. Anyways, I'll elaborate more in another video, but things did start getting better for me as the weeks progressed, as the days progressed, as the 2 weeks went by. Also, I decided I would take another 1 milligram shot of retatrutide. There's kind of a weird calming effect that Reta has. It kind of lowers the dopamine receptors or whatever, and there's other like receptors. There's a lot of things that drug does, that medicine or whatever you want to call it does, that peptide. But I wanted to just make sure that I wasn't dealing with like hunger spikes or any sort of weird issues. I wanted to remain calm and just focus on healing. So I took what a lot of people would consider a microdose of just 1 milligram, and I think that helped a little bit. But I'd already stabilized my weight to about 140, 141, something like that about that time. So I wasn't really trying to lose any more weight. But a lot of people tout that retatrutide, that Reta is really good at other beneficial secondary or side effects beyond weight loss or diabetes management that carry on. And I just wanted that sort of security blanket in using that. So I did that as well. But again, I can go into that more of another video. I want to start wrapping up how this experience went. One thing that I experienced the day before the surgeries, I was told to fast. You want to not eat anything, you know, from like 10 p.m. or whatever the night before, and don't drink anything else. And then the next day, before the surgery, you're not eating or drinking anything. Then you go through the surgery, and afterwards you can eat or drink. I absolutely wasn't hungry. I hadn't taken Retta for like a month prior to that, so I didn't have any sort of unusual appetite suppression. But when your nose gets broke, your body has other things to worry about. And I had no appetite for the full 48-hour period from when I stopped eating and drinking to after the surgery, when I ate my first meal 2 days later. I did drink a little bit off and on. I was drinking these little Bay energy drinks, Bay, whatever they're called. Love those things. And but that was basically how that experience went. But I didn't eat a lot in the 2-week period that I had this plastic stent in my nose, and I don't really attribute that to the retatrutide. I think the trauma of going through that experience really kind of on top of me already having a set diet. Anyways, I've always been locked in with my diet for the last 6 years, so that went really well. But I did start to feel better as the weeks progressed, as the days progressed in those 2 weeks. I started getting back to normal, the energy level was better, but I still couldn't breathe through my nose because that plastic was in there, and I was trying to clean out my nose, but I can only access certain parts, and you can only do so much with Q-tips and, you know, maybe a little bit of toilet paper wrapped around it and stuff like that. And I tried using the saline solution, and it was a mess. And so, yeah, that was a fun time there. So as the 2-week mark arrived and I had to go back to the original clinic and see the doctor that performed the surgery on me and you know, analyzed me as well. You know, we were basically going to remove the stent, and I did some Google AI searches on what that process is going to be like. But I finally decided, you know what, let's watch a video of this process. So I watched a couple of videos, and basically you're standing there like that. The doctor inserts a little thing, and then, you know, they snip the little thing that separates the two. It's basically one plastic piece, but he inserts something that's no bigger than a Q-tip, and it goes up there and it snips the little thing in two, and then he basically pulled out one of them, cleaned it out, inserted the thing in, and then pulled it out. That's what happened in the 2 videos, and I basically knew that was what was going to happen to me. And so sure enough, we go to the office, and the doctor basically, he's obviously done this enough times, they could tell that I was a little nervous. You know, I told him I was going to be nervous too, so it wasn't like a surprise. And he was the doctor that performed the surgery, so I'm sure he had an idea of how a few minutes prior to the surgery was with me. So he was like, hey, I need you to kind of look this way. And then he kind of like a ninja or like a magician, you know, kind of had it off to the side, you know, out of sight, and all of a sudden, whoop, and I was, you know, freaking out just a sec, you know, and he just, whoop, you know, snip, and then pulled out. He basically said it's going to feel like he's pulling a nose hair. You know what, that's accurate. It didn't actually hurt, but it was like just, I guess, pulling a nose hair or something like that. And then he pulled this out, and it was weird. When you look at the Google AI or Google Gemini search result, it'll say it feels weird or it's described as weird. Accurate. It felt weird having someone pull one out of my nose, clean it, one, and then clean it. And he said, man, you really need to, you know, clean your nose, do a better job of cleaning your nose, is essentially what he said. I don't remember how he said it exactly, but he was like, man, your nose is really dirty, definitely clean that up. So I got after it when I got home. Got the saline and stuff like that. Had a little bit of bloody phlegm after that, like for that day, but things got better, and from that moment, both those were gone and he cleaned it. The amount of breathing I could do was better than I've ever experienced in my life. And it's maintained to this day. I'm worried that, oh no, maybe the bone will get crooked again. You know, I've been super careful not to do anything. I've accidentally like bumped my nose or something, like, you know, putting a cat on and bumping it. It's still a little tender right now. It's been the best breathing that I've had ever. I've just never experienced this, and I didn't know what I was missing. My sleep has been better. I'm still an insomniac, that didn't go away, but now when I sleep, it's deeper. Now, part of that, I do attribute that to the growth hormone secretagogue pair that I'm using in CJC plus IPA. That's actually helping me, and it's basically letting me know I have not enough growth hormone. My body's not producing enough growth hormone, and that may be largely in part because I'm relatively sedentary. I'm fairly active, but I don't do any weight training, and I can still improve my diet a little bit more and lean out a little bit more, build a little more muscle, and do things that promote growth hormones. So that's something I'm going to look into, and I'm going to do more blood work. But let me go and start wrapping up this experience here for you guys. I know this video is long enough, and there's not going to be a lot of people that watch this unless there are people that find it over time and that want to know what this experience is like. This surgery was worth it. I would go through this again. I would not hesitate to go through this again. And I would try to learn how to better adapt to the nervousness and the tension that I had leading up to me having the injections, the IV put on me, and then the removal. You know, when I watch the two girls, have their plastic stent removed, on the YouTube videos that were like several years old, they're just sitting there, bloop, bloop, okay, bloop, clean, bloop, clean, and it's like, I wish I'd handled it like that. So that's the one thing I would tell you to do. Just be ready. It's weird. Accept that something weird is going to happen. Accept that this is going to happen. You can't do anything about it. But the reason why they're putting that IV in you is they need to knock you out. So when you go through the surgery, you're not fidgeting and doing some weird stuff while they break your nose. And yes, that is weird. And it's not like they're Mike Tyson punching you and breaking your nose, but they're doing whatever they're doing to straighten it, and they put the stent in there or whatever it is, whatever the process is. Maybe they're not breaking your nose. I don't know. I've never actually watched an actual thing, but it felt like they broke that thing when I woke up. And but whatever. I highly recommend you go through it. If you have a deviated septum, don't be embarrassed. 80% of the people out there have it. It's very, very common in sports. It's very common as kids. You get, you fall down, or someone throws something at you, or whatever. It's very common. And the way you test is you cover your mouth and you cover a nostril. You close it like that and you breathe out of one. And then you keep your mouth closed and you use the other nostril. And so that's what you want to do, and that will help you test. Now, you want to make sure your nose is clean before you do this test. If you have a stuffy nose, whatever, that's not the time you do this test. Clean your nose, use a saline solution below your nose, and then run this test. If you're having significantly harder time breathing out of one of your nostrils, go see an ear, nose, and throat specialist, whatever they're called, and get the deviated septum surgery. I forget what it's called. I'll put the little thing on screen. Get it done. You will not regret it afterwards, and the rest of your life, provided you don't injure it again or whatever, you will breathe better. So that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys have a great experience if you do this, and be good to yourself and others. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.